All right. So we will be getting started in just a minute here. So my name is Victoria Malvi. Some of you may already know my name from emails that we have. So thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Really excited to kind of dig into all the details of the Aspiring Educator Scholarship. We are going to be sharing a presentation, and I will ask that during the presentation, if you could just keep yourself muted, that'd be super helpful. And of course, feel free to come off mute if you have any questions during the entire slide deck. And we've also built in a good amount of space at the end of the presentation for additional questions or concerns or any discussion that anybody might have. Alrighty. So I think we actually have most of everyone here, so we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. So welcome to our Aspiring Educators Scholarship webinar. This is the first of two webinars, as you're aware, so we registered for this one. And so we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. So this will be pretty quick to run through. We're going to start with welcome and introductions so that at first you can kind of see who's behind the scenes here. I know that, again, I said that you might receive emails from me or our Aspiring Educator Scholarship email inbox, just so that you know who you're talking to and who's doing the work kind of behind the scenes. And then we're going to jump into an overview of the scholarship, including kind of everything from start to finish of what to expect for applications, any sort of requirements for it. And then also review our participating educator preparation programs, which is you. And then also go through the process of awarding the scholarship, including the guide to receive the funds. I know that that can be kind of confusing and just a lot of different steps. So we've broken it down so that it's a little bit easier to follow. And again, as I said, there will be a space at the end of the presentation for questions and answers, and we could have any sort of discussion that you might want to bring up, and we'll have that space for that. So introductions, our small but mighty team. My name is Victoria Malvi. I work within the talent office and I'm an education services specialist. I'm joined by my fellow colleagues as we all work together for the Aspiring Educator Scholarship team, and I will let them introduce themselves. Owen, looks like you're muted.
Followed your instruction before. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Owen Quinn, Grants and Contract Specialist in the Talent Office and part of the Aspiring Educator Scholarship team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Belcher-Felton. I'm support staff in the Talent Office, and you've probably seen emails in the past from me, so it's nice to put a face to the names.
Thank you both. And then jumping right into it, so our overview of the Aspiring Educator Scholarship, you'll see just an image of kind of a generic flyer. You're probably well aware of these flyers we send out every single semester for our aspiring educators. It was initiated in spring 2024, and it's been active every spring and fall semester since then. And some of you might be aware the scholarship was initially targeted at diverse students who graduated from an Alliance school district, but we have had recent bill changes and updates to the scholarship to accommodate a wider berth of trying to capture as many students as possible. So now, currently, we accept students graduated from Alliance school districts without the diversity requirement. And of course, they have to be enrolled in an educator preparation program. And also, it's important to note that this might be subject to change of the requirements moving forward. There are several bills that are still active and out, and if those changes are finalized and approved, they will be implemented immediately, and we will be sure to let you all know. And also to apply, as again, you might be aware, students will need to fill out the online application. We generate this every single semester in the link that will be on the flyer. And students are able to fill it out even if they've applied before, they still have to fill it out every single semester. It's pretty quick. It shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes for each student to fill it out. And recently we made a change that if you are a new student, you have a bit of a longer application versus a repeat student. You don't have to answer as many questions just because you've already given us that information. So we don't need a repeat of that every single semester. The students are asked to confirm their school program and Alliance district that they graduated high school from, their expected graduation date of their current program, and also for new applicants, they have to submit 2 letters of recommendation, a resume, and proof of acceptance into an EPP. All right. And I know that there was some questions about how a student can utilize a scholarship. So hopefully this can kind of clear the air on that. So students are eligible for a total of $10,000 per academic year, meaning spring and fall. But you can only apply 5,000 per semester, so you can't have any sort of surplus funds from one semester into another. These funds are only applicable to tuition, not to room and board or books or cost of attendance. We've had several students reaching out asking if they have, if everything's covered in their tuition, if they can apply the funds elsewhere. Unfortunately, just due to legislative language, again, it's only to tuition. And also noting that if the balance of a student's tuition is less than $5,000, say it's 3,000, we will award up to that amount. So we'll cover that 3,000, but that extra 2,000 will just not be granted. We only award up to the amount, no surplus funding. And as you know who you are, I just wanted to list out all of our EPPs that participate in this program. So it's really exciting to see all of different faces and names here and that you can kind of know who we are. And you could see other universities that you might not have been aware of that participate in the program. We also participate with certain universities that have different types of schedules. So not only the standard fall and spring, but some of them have summer schedules that we kind of accommodate to ensure students are still receiving that $10,000 per academic year. Right. And moving forward, so for the process of awarding funds, we tried to break it down into 7 basic steps so it's a little bit easy to follow. From beginning to end, from when a student first applies to when they receive funding, it can be quite a bit of a process. It could be almost a couple of months. So these steps kind of break down the big generic concepts, and we'll go further into the funding, which is the most time-consuming portion of this process. But we want you to have a better idea of what to expect for the different steps involved. So I know that it could be kind of feel like sometimes a student applies and you don't hear back for several weeks, but we want to know, want you to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And this is a timeline expectation. So there's a lot of information on this slide of all the different steps involved, but just this is very generic. So it's a rough timeline and it is not necessarily exact. It can vary greatly due to the amount of students that apply in a given semester. So if we have more students, this timeline might be a little bit stretched out versus less students. There's just less to vet through and go through. Also, to have you aware, when we have the deadline hit, we try our best to reach out to students that might be missing certain documentation, especially if they're a new student, just to make sure that everybody that's possibly eligible to be vetted out can be like able to accept the scholarship. We do try our best though to work in a timely fashion, as we know time is of the essence for getting these funds approved and moving through to financial aid or anything that would apply to. And we've recently, as we were saying, applied our have 2 different application types in the single application link. So students that are repeat applicants don't have to give us as much information, which has helped us with vetting and as well as sending you out the list of our vetted students, just so that it's a little bit quicker of a turnaround on our end as well. And I also want to make note that the timeline from the deadline to when a student can receive funding could take a few months. And the huge kind of chunk of this time is the funding process of going through EGMS, which I'm sure some of you might be aware of that term. It's the e-grants management system. We'll go into that in a little bit of detail so that you can kind of see and understand the different concepts within EGMS and the different processes, because I know it can be a bit difficult to navigate. And so when there is any sort of delays of, approvals and things like that, that timing of the funding itself, that's what takes the most time, not necessarily the application and vetting for academic standing, but it's that funding process that could be a little bit of a time-consuming part of the process. And moving right along into receiving funds. So we use the e-grants management system, or EGMS. And that's how your EPP is able to draw down funds from the Aspiring Educator Scholarship. And to make it as simple as possible, we've broken it down into two main cycles within EGMS. So first, there's the budget upload and approval, and then there's the funding request and approval. And so essentially, the budget upload and approval is the budget is given to you from our like from CSDE to you, which means that if, for example, I have 3 students, all of them receiving $5,000, then my budget will be $15,000. And then you have to then go through, upload your budget of $15,000 and approve it. And then there's the funding request and approval, which is very similar, saying, okay, now that you've been budgeted for this $15,000, you have to go into EGMS again and request, and then the approval goes through for the funding request. And again, because there are sometimes a lot of hands in this process, depending on your specifics at your EPPs as well as us on the back end at CSDE, it can take a bit of time to have all of these different hands approve and have eyes on it. So everybody knows how that process can go of making sure all of the different notes are taken care of. So that's why it can take a little bit of time. But these two processes are the kind of main cycles that need to happen, and they're reliant on one another, so you can't start one without the other having already been done. So that's why there's kind of a lot of steps here. We've broken it down again into 6 main steps. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than these 6 steps. But it's sort of a good overview for you to kind of keep in mind when this happens. So once CSE gives your EPP the given budget for that semester, you then upload your budget within that given amount. And then it has to be for the applicable fiscal year. Applicable fiscal year and grant. And then prior to submitting any sort of step for that, please ensure that all of your components are up to date, which is also an impact as well. If any even teeny thing is off, it can start the whole process over again, which can be a big pain. So ensuring everything is up to date prior to submitting and every single step of the way is really important. And once your budget is uploaded, CSDE will then be notified and then approved based on the amount initially budgeted for you. And then also, after that happens, you will then move forward to the funding approval, which again is a very similar process that you then submit your funding request for the budgeted amount, and then it bumps over to us, approval, and then in a perfect world, it goes through very smoothly and no repeats or having to kind of go back in the process to update any steps. So we do also ask that when you submit a funding request, you do it for your entire amount. So you don't do it individually per student. You actually do it for the entire, if you were approved for $15,000, then you do it for $15,000 for the funding request. I do see a question that popped up in the chat. Let's see. How you'll receive the initial approved budget. I'm actually going to defer and ensure that if I'm not saying it correctly, my colleague Owen would actually be your best contact here. I believe we give you that information. I don't know if that's through EGMS. Owen, can you elaborate on that? Looks like you're muted.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So when we get the information from you on the number of students, we obviously, as Victoria said, multiply that by the students by 5,000 if that's the amount, unless there is less of a financial need, and then we make those adjustments. We transmit that to you, the EPPs, with the amount of money that each school or university or college is getting. And that's how your budget is predicated based on that amount. Internally, what I do is what I did today is just submitted the OF1 and 2, which is the amount of money per EPP to the State Department of Education fiscal, and they approve it. So the system is that I will send you the amount of scholarships that have been awarded to you, do a budget upload for fiscal, and then I will notify you when it has gone through fiscal and approved and now eligible for you to do a fund request.
So
Thank you.
oh, and so you upload it for approval to fiscal, or we upload it in EGMS? Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand.
So I do it for the talent office for the entire amount of uh, grants that have been awarded.
Okay. And then we do our
Then,
individual budgets. But
then
did you
exactly.
did
Then
you
you
send
will
us a
go in.
summary, or did we just get the individual letters of award and then we have to add those up? I just want to make sure I'm getting it accurate. And I'm worried that if I have to do it manually, I'm going to get the wrong
So
number.
no, so exactly. So what's happened is you got a copy of all the award letters,
Mhm.
with the exception of Central. We added one today. Um, and what will happen is which I just did today, is the budget upload for fiscal. When they approve it and it is ready to go, then I will alert you to what your total amount of the
Got it.
scholarship is. And
Okay,
then you
perfect.
can go into EGMS and upload your individual budget.
Okay. Thank you
Got
so
it?
much for clarifying. I
No problem.
appreciate you walking through.
Who's this, Maureen?
This is Maureen. Yep.
Okay. Got you, Maureen.
Thank you, Owen. Are there any other questions on the process? I know it's a lot of steps, and it can be pretty daunting. Right, then we will move right along. We've included some EGMS screenshots, if this is helpful at all, just to kind of see where we're at and just have a few helpful tips. So you should be able to find and access your specific EPP through the search tab, and then also through that, find your specific grant through that search tab as well. And a helpful tip to keep in mind as you're navigating through EGMS is to ensure at the top header of the screen to make sure you're in the right EPP, obviously, fiscal year and grant. It should be highlighted kind of at the top of your screen. So in green, we've highlighted, just an example, we've used Charter Oak here, to show the EPP fiscal year and the Aspiring Educators Scholarship Grant. So you should always have that available, that you can see it at the top, and you'll be working within that. And then moving forward, just a quick screen grab here of, next slide, please, Michelle, of our budget uploads. So you will be able to find your budget upload through the application tab under budget. And again, as Owen was just describing, your budget upload, and it's similar to the funding application, should be for the entire amount that CSDE has given you based on the vetted students in that previous process that we already reviewed. And also keeping in mind to always keep that tab at the top, ensuring your EPP, fiscal year, and grant should be accurately displayed so you're working in the right location. And then moving forward to our funding request. So again, similarly, keeping that in mind, to submit a funding request, you'll have the Submit New Fund Request button at the bottom. It's a little bit kind of tricky to find if you're not really looking for it. And again, as we're saying previously, making sure you're submitting a funding request for the entire amount that you're to be funded, not individually per student. And for these steps through EGMS, we're actually going to be creating a user guide that we'll be sending out to everyone, that'll have all the nitty-gritty of a breakdown from start to finish. And of course, if you have any additional questions following up with that, you could always feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, because again, it could be a really daunting process and we want to make sure we're getting you these funds in timely fashion. So this is our whole presentation, and now we're moving forward to if there's an open floor for any questions or answers that you, or concerns that you might have that we can provide answers for. And just wanting to see if we were able to kind of hit all of the points. I know in that RSVP I had reached out to say if there was anything specific you wanted discussed or if you had a question. So hoping that we answered most of your questions, but is there anything outstanding that we can help address?
I had a
I'm going to say,
question
I hate to,
about, oh, sorry,
oh,
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Okay, I had a question about the scholarship part of it. So if a student's getting an outside scholarship that does cover other resources such as room, board, It sounds like you're looking, and that scholarship comes in before your scholarship comes in. You're looking at the account, and so you're just paying the difference of the tuition. But then that student could use that money for those additional costs. How do you distinguish that?
So the scholarship can only be applied to tuition.
Mhm.
And so when we are saying you have this $5,000, even if you have, $10,000 in room and board, but your tuition is covered elsewhere by other grants or other scholarships, unfortunately, then that $5,000 just cannot be applied. I believe, and Michelle can probably correct me if I'm wrong here because I don't want to say the incorrect information, but when we reach out and vet for students in that sort of communication, if there's any sort of discrepancy of tuition versus room and board and things of that nature, it's kind of discussed in that time. Am I right, Michelle?
Yes, when we do our vetting process, we do let you know that they're eligible for up to 5,000 for their tuition. And if there is a difference, if it's less that they owe for tuition, then just let us know and we'll adjust the amount they receive.
Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, so I'm just making sure too. So if at that time, say they get the scholarship and it's after they receive the funds, and that money is something that they can use like the outside scholarship. So they receive your scholarship first, and then in the future they receive an outside scholarship, but that can be towards living expenses, room board, other educational expenses. Do we now need to correct your award, or do we give the student that money for the educational expenses part of it? Does that make sense?
I believe we would have to do a correction of that.
That's
That
that's correct.
it can only be correct. It can only be for tuition only, unfortunately.
Right, but the other scholarship is for
I mean, if the
educational
other
expenses.
scholarship can cover other things such as room and board, then, you can apply our $5,000 just to their tuition and then spread that other one out over other areas if that's what you want to do. We're
That's what I
just
was
saying that
asking.
our scholarship can only go towards tuition.
Right, right. And how do you like, so if a scholarship comes in first and we apply it towards the bill, but we also know that other outside scholarship, not yours, but the outside scholarship is for other educational expenses, um, you're just looking at the account, right? Or on the
Yeah, we
balance
just
of the account.
we just go by whatever information the school gives us as far as, they know what the students are receiving for scholarships because we don't have that insight. So we just go by whatever the school financial aid office generally tells us the student
Oh,
is actually in need of.
okay, got it. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Sometimes we don't know outside scholarships until they like, we get them.
Yeah, I'm
No,
sure.
so the other thing is at the end of the scholarship period, there is a final report that is issued. And at that point, if you find that there was money that was allocated to the student, then you would just report that you're not using those funds because it has been covered by an outside source. So just reduce the amount of the grant in your final report.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Is Monday's webinar the same topic as today's? Okay.
Yep.
Also, thank you for all the help you've given me over the different semesters with this project. Sometimes I get stuck in EGMS and you've been very helpful.
Glad to hear. Are there any other questions or concerns or thoughts?
Yeah, I had one. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I think I had asked this at the webinar sign up, but technically these are forgivable loans pending service by the student as a teacher. So is there any exit counseling that we should be doing or that the State Department is doing with the students about that?
Exit counseling, I don't know if we offer that right now. We do have an attestation of that they're aware of what to do, and if they don't meet the requirements after graduation. But no, we currently do not have an exit counseling set up right now. And it's also, we're still pretty new in our scholarship as well. So that is definitely something we could look to build on.
It is also noted in the award letter that they receive that they do, there is a responsibility to serve as a teacher, as a certified teacher. And if they don't, that they have to pay back based on, the time that they are certified.
And when they graduate, do they get any kind of statement, or what happens upon the student's graduation to say this is the amount you owe and how it's paid back?
So that amount owed isn't necessarily on graduation. We'll see, the biggest thing is not necessarily us seeing that they graduate, but part of this is that they have to become a certified educator in the state, which we have access to that list. And, that can't happen without graduating. So we kind of take that as, okay, you're certified as an educator, then that obviously means you have graduated your program successfully. And we keep track of that to say, okay, you are certified for X amount of years, and we are able to see that on the back end, but we don't send them anything upon graduation saying that you'll owe this if you don't, do this, and that, because it is something that they attest to, and they have to have a written signature that they say they understand this. And as Michelle said, it's in their award letters as well.
So I should just add that Dr. Tucker has assembled us in the team office to address that issue of what if a student that received the award is not teaching in the state of Connecticut, and therefore there is a repayment that is required. It's stated in the award letter very clearly. That is not the responsibility of the talent office. It is the responsibility of the fiscal office. And we are now looking at a way of addressing that. So as Victoria has just talked about, we do have access to that information. We will be asking the EPPs for additional information and what they know about where the student is teaching, if they have additional information, and we will be providing that with the fiscal office, who will be making a determination on a repayment schedule, which has not been determined at this point. We have been focused merely on getting the money out and in the hands of the students and the future teachers. And now we are looking at what our responsibility is on the collection when they have not met the statutory requirements of the legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is DSAP experience after completion considered as part of the served time in as part of the scholarship requirements, or is it strictly initial certification first?
I honestly, I'm not
Strictly
familiar with the
initial.
certification.
It's
Okay.
initial certification, yes.
Okay, so that would be a concern because some of the people from our list I know will end up continuing their DSAP pending exams. So would they then go into repayment?
So what I will do is we'll have to follow up with you because maybe we'll have to get a list because there is a grace period depending on when they complete their program. We have some people that complete in December. They may not obtain their certification until the summer. So there is a grace period there. But if you do have completers that are moving into DSAPs until their initial is going to be issued, then you need to notify us of that, and then we will not put them on the repayment list, which then goes to the fiscal office.
Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Mich-
Tucker.
Michelle,
You're
who was that? Who asked that question? So I can just make a notation of that.
Oh, and it's Jen Ruggiero from Southern.
Oh, okay, Jen. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I guess sorry, this is Laura from Fairfield. I just have one quick question. If a student is part of, let's say, like a residency program and is receiving reduced tuition, and the district may be paying part of tuition, is it still okay for them to apply for, if they meet the parameters, apply for and use these scholarships?
So as long as there are additional tuition funds that the scholarship can apply to, then yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, and again, if the need is less than that $5,000, just let us know so we can make the adjustments here.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any last minute thoughts? All right. If there are no additional questions or concerns at this time, we will give you back about 10 minutes to your day. But of course, if you do think of anything that, pops up, always feel free to reach out to us. We will be sharing our email for the Aspiring Educators inbox, and you can reach out to us at any time over email, or if you want to set up a time over the phone or Teams as well. We were happy to connect with you, especially as we kind of expand and go through our current semester and upcoming semesters. So I just want to thank you all again for hopping on and kind of going through this informational webinar. Hopefully it was very helpful and we were able to clear up some questions or concerns about the scholarship, as that was the goal. But we look forward to connecting with each and every one of you as we continue through our Aspiring Educators program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone take care. Bye-bye.